Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever wondered why, in a world that never stops talking, the ones who say the least often achieve the most? We live in a time where comparison is constant, distractions are endless, and silence is mistaken for weakness. But what if I told you that real power, the kind that builds unshakable confidence, clarity, and resilience, comes not from looking outward, but inward? The greatest leaders, the most impactful innovators, the strongest individuals, they have one thing in common. They focus deeply on themselves, and they move in silence. Because when your energy is no longer scattered, it becomes a force. When you stop explaining yourself to the world, you begin creating something the world can't ignore. So today, I'm not here to tell you to compete harder. I'm here to invite you to go quieter, to go deeper, to go within. In a world that never stops talking, silence is often misunderstood. We live in a culture where being loud is seen as being strong, where constant posting, speaking, and showing up in the spotlight is equated with success. But silence, true, intentional silence, is not weakness. It's a form of strength that is deeply misunderstood. It requires courage to remain quiet when everyone else is shouting. It takes strength to resist the urge to explain yourself, to defend your choices, or to seek approval. And most importantly, it requires self-trust, an unshakable belief in your own vision, your path, and your pace. Silence is not the absence of words, it's the presence of purpose. When you choose silence, you're not choosing to be passive or invisible. You're choosing to preserve your energy, protect your peace, and focus on what truly matters. The world tries to pull you in every direction. Opinions, criticism, noise, expectations, they all want a piece of you. And if you react to everything, you will lose focus on the one thing that truly deserves your attention, your own journey. Choosing silence in these moments isn't a retreat. It's a statement. It says, I know who I am, and I don't need to prove it. Silence gives you power because it allows you to listen, first to yourself, and then to the world around you. When you are not constantly filling every space with your voice, you begin to hear what actually matters. You hear your doubts, your instincts, your dreams, your fears. And in that stillness, you can begin to confront them, understand them, and grow from them. This is something that noise never allows. Constant talking often comes from insecurity. People talk more when they're unsure, when they're afraid, when they need validation. But silence, that's what comes when you've done the work, when you're confident in your direction, when you're no longer seeking approval. Think about the most powerful individuals in history. Leaders, creators, visionaries. They didn't gain respect by shouting. They weren't obsessed with being seen or heard. They were obsessed with mastering their craft. They allowed their work to speak for them. Their silence was not emptiness. It was discipline. They knew that talking about what you're going to do doesn't get you there. Doing the work in silence does. When you stop talking about your goals and start quietly building toward them, your actions begin to carry more weight than your words ever could. But silence is also uncomfortable. We've been conditioned to fill space, to explain ourselves, to be loud enough to be noticed. And so when we practice silence, it often feels like we're doing something wrong. People may misinterpret it. They might think you're distant, weak, uncertain. That's okay, your silence isn't for them. It's for you. You're not here to meet their expectations. You're here to exceed your own. And that can only happen when you stop wasting your energy on being understood by others, and instead invest that energy into understanding yourself. The truth is, silence reveals. It reveals what you truly care about. It reveals who you really are when no one's watching. It gives you the space to reflect, to correct, and to evolve. And more importantly, it shows you who's paying attention. Because those who truly see you will hear you even when you're silent. They will recognize the depth behind your actions, the intention behind your stillness, and the power behind your restraint. When you are silent, you are not hiding, you are building. You are not being passive, you are being selective with your energy. You're not ignoring the world, you're choosing not to let it distract you. And in doing so, you create a foundation that is unshakable. Because when your power comes from within, not from praise, not from attention, not from approval, you become unstoppable. So if you've ever felt like you don't fit into the noise, good. That means you're meant for something greater. Let the world talk. Let them guess. Let them wonder. And while they do, focus on becoming so good they can't ignore you, even if they can't hear you yet. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. It's a simple concept, but one of the most powerful truths you'll ever learn. The moment you begin to focus inward, truly, intentionally, everything begins to change. The distractions, the noise, the opinions of others, they begin to fade into the background. You start to realize that your power doesn't come from what's happening around you, but from what's happening within you. The external world is filled with noising social media, competition, criticism, pressure, endless comparisons. But none of that matters if your internal world is clear, focused, and grounded. When you focus inward, you reclaim your energy. You stop leaking it through unnecessary drama, through endless scrolling, through worrying about what others are doing or saying. You begin to conserve your mental, emotional, and even physical resources. That energy, once scattered across 1,000 pointless directions, starts to consolidate. And that's when real progress begins. Most people are tired not because they're working too hard, because they're focusing on too many things that don't matter. Their energy is being drained by distractions, by things that have nothing to do with their goals, values, or personal growth. When you cut those distractions out, when you stop giving your attention away so freely, you get your power back. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean being selfish. It means being responsible. Responsible for your time, your emotions, your growth. It means realizing that the most important project you will ever work on is yourself, your habits, your mindset, your peace. And that kind of focus requires discipline. It means saying no to things that don't align with your path, even when they're tempting. It means spending more time alone, reflecting, building, learning. And yes, sometimes it means walking away from people, places, or patterns that pull your energy in the wrong direction. You become what you feed your mind. If your attention is constantly on other people, what they're doing, how far ahead they are, what they think of you, you lose touch with your own path. But if you redirect that attention to yourself, you begin to grow. You begin to evolve into someone stronger, more focused, more aligned with your purpose. Suddenly, you're not watching others win. You're building your own victory, quietly, consistently, intentionally. The truth is, the outside world will always try to distract you. There will always be someone doing better, someone louder, someone more visible. But none of that has anything to do with you. The real competition is internal. It's between the person you were yesterday and the person you have the potential to become. When you focus inward, you stop trying to win external battles and start mastering your internal ones. That's where confidence comes from. Not from being the best in the room, but from knowing you're better than you used to be. When your attention is fully yours, it becomes a tool. You can use it to build new skills, deepen your self-awareness, and create the life you want. You start to recognize what fuels you and what drains you. You begin to create boundaries, not out of fear, but out of clarity. And with every boundary you set, you protect your energy just a little more. With every distraction you remove, you reclaim a little more power. Over time, that adds up. You begin to feel more grounded, more in control, more free. There's a kind of peace that comes from focusing on yourself, a deep, quiet confidence. You're no longer reacting to everything around you. You're moving with intention. You're choosing where your attention goes. And because of that, your life begins to reflect who you truly are, not who the world tried to convince you to be. You're not running from distraction to distraction. You're building something solid, your habits, your values, your future. So take your attention back. Redirect it from the external chaos to your internal compass. Ask yourself daily, where is my energy going right now? Is it aligned with who I want to become? And if the answer is no, change it. You have that power. And the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Because when your focus is yours, undivided, disciplined, and purposeful, there's no limit to what you can create. Your energy is your greatest asset. Protect it, feed it, and let it carry you toward the life you were meant to live. Comparison is one of the most subtle, yet most destructive habits we fall into. It creeps into our minds quietly, often disguised as motivation or curiosity. We scroll through social media, watch others' successes, listen to what they have achieved, and before we realize it, we're no longer focused on our own path. We're measuring our worth, our progress, and our potential against some timeline, someone else's highlight reel. And the moment we start doing that, we lose clarity. Clarity is what gives us direction. It's what helps us define who we are, what we want, and how we'll get there. But comparison muddies the water. It creates doubt where there was once confidence. It makes us question if we're doing enough, achieving enough, or being enough. When you compare yourself to others, you stop seeing your own strengths clearly. You overlook your own growth because your eyes are fixed on someone else's results. And worst of all, you begin to forget your unique story, your own process, your own potential. Every person is on a different journey, different starting points, different battles, different timelines. But comparison makes us forget that. It tricks us into thinking life is a race where everyone is on the same track, moving toward the same finish line. That's not true. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not failing just because someone else seems ahead. Your journey is yours for a reason, and the moment you start comparing, you abandon it. You try to walk someone else's path, and that's when you lose yourself. Comparison also feeds insecurity. It shifts your focus from what you have to what you lack, from gratitude to envy, from self-belief to self-doubt. And the more you feed that mindset, the harder it becomes to recognize your own value. You could be making great progress, achieving meaningful growth, but if you're constantly comparing, you won't even see it. You'll be too distracted by someone else's pace, someone else's success, someone else's applause. What comparison really does is steal your attention. It takes your focus away from the one thing you can actually control: your own actions. You can't control how fast someone else is growing, how successful they are, or how perfect their life appears. But you can control how you show up, how much effort you put in, how committed you are to your goals. When your mind is occupied with others, you leave your own life unattended. You begin to move with hesitation instead of confidence. You wait for permission or validation instead of trusting your own vision. There's a reason clarity fades when comparison begins. Clarity comes from within. It comes from reflection, self-awareness, and listening to your inner voice. But comparison forces you to look outward, to seek direction from external sources. And the more you rely on that, the less you hear your own voice. You begin to chase what's popular instead of what's purposeful. You follow trends instead of your truth. And that's when you start to feel lost, not because you don't have what it takes, but because you've forgotten who you are. To reclaim your clarity, you must silence the noise. You must stop measuring your life with someone else's ruler. You must trust that your timing, your path, and your purpose are unfolding exactly as they should. Instead of comparing, get curious. Ask yourself, what do I really want? What does success mean to me? Not to others, not to society, but to me. What makes me feel fulfilled, not just admired? Those answers will never come from looking at someone else's life. They only come from looking inward. And when you do that, when you stop comparing and start focusing, you begin to see yourself clearly again. You remember your strengths. You feel proud of your progress. You become more confident in your decisions because they're no longer influenced by what others are doing. You move with purpose, not pressure. And that clarity becomes your power. It keeps you grounded when things get noisy. It reminds you of what matters when you're tempted to chase what doesn't. It keeps your attention where it belongs, on your growth, your values, your mission. So let others live their lives. Let them celebrate their wins, share their journeys, walk their paths. But don't lose yours in the process. Stay rooted in your truth. Celebrate your progress. Trust your timing. Because when you let go of comparison, you gain something far more valuable: like clarity. And with clarity, you can go further, deeper, and stronger than comparison could ever take you. In a world obsessed with instant recognition and constant validation, there is something powerful about choosing to work in silence. It goes against the grain of modern culture. Today, people are expected to announce their goals, showcase every small achievement, and narrate every step of their journey in real time. But what if you didn't? What if you kept your head down, stayed quiet, and let your work speak louder than your words ever could? There's a special kind of discipline in staying silent while you build. When you resist the urge to announce your plans or prove yourself to others, you preserve your energy. You redirect your focus from external applause to internal progress. Talking about what you're going to do can feel good. It creates a temporary sense of accomplishment, but it doesn't move you forward. Action does. Silence gives you the space to do the real work, free from distractions, opinions, and expectations. When you work in silence, you protect your vision. You keep it safe from unnecessary noise, from judgment, from doubt. Not everyone will understand your dreams. Some will criticize, others will compare, and many will project their limitations onto you. By staying silent, you shield your goals from this interference. You give yourself room to explore, to fail, to grow without the pressure of constant observation. That freedom is rare. It's also powerful because when no one's watching, you're not performing. You're practicing, you're evolving, you're doing the kind of work that doesn't need to be seen, only felt. There's a quiet confidence that comes from putting in the work behind the scenes. You're not chasing validation, you're not trying to prove your worth, you already know it. And because you're not distracted by external praise, you're more connected to the process. You become immersed in it, focused, intentional, patient. You stop rushing to the finish line and start mastering the journey. And mastery takes time. It takes repetition, correction, persistence. That kind of depth can't happen in the spotlight. It happens in silence. Working in silence also builds resilience. When no one knows what you're doing, there's no one to impress, no audience to entertain. Just you, your ambition, and the work that needs to be done. You learn to rely on self-motivation. You push forward because you believe in your vision, not because others are cheering you on. That's where true inner strength is built, in the quiet moments, in the unseen hours, in the space where results begin to take root long before they become visible. Eventually, the results do show, but by the time they do, you've already changed. You're no longer desperate for attention or recognition. You're steady, grounded, sure of who you are and what you've built. And when your results finally speak for themselves, the world listens, because you're not just making noise, you're making impact. You're not telling people what you can do them. You're showing them. Letting your results speak is about more than just being humble. It's about being effective. Noise fades, but results last. Words can be forgotten, but achievements remain. When you allow your work to do the talking, you create something undeniable, something real, something earned. That kind of credibility can't be faked. It's not built through announcements, promises, or performance. It's built through consistency, discipline, and integrity. There will always be pressure to share, to prove, to be seen, but real growth doesn't need an audience. Real success is built when no one is watching. So don't waste your time trying to convince the world of your potential. Use that time to fulfill it. Trust the process. Trust your pace. Stay in your lane. The world will notice when it's time. And when it does, it won't be because you told them. It'll be because your results made it impossible to ignore. So keep working, keep showing up, keep building in silence. Let others talk. Let doubt. Let them wonder. Your job isn't to explain your journey. It's to walk it. And when the time is right, your results will speak loudly, clearly, unmistakably. Until then, let your silence be your strength and your work be your voice. Before you can lead others, before you can influence, inspire, or impact anyone around you, you must first lead yourself. Self-discipline is the foundation of personal growth and the silent engine behind all true success. It's not flashy, it's not loud, and it's not always celebrated, but it's always present in those who consistently rise above. Discipline is what shapes your character when no one is watching. It's the commitment to doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It's showing up for yourself day after day, choice after choice. Because you understand that if you can't govern your own actions, emotions, and habits, you will never be able to direct anything else in your life with clarity or power. There's a common misconception that leadership begins when others start following you. That's not true. Leadership begins the moment you start taking full responsibility for your life, your thoughts, your behaviors, your time, and your decisions. It starts with accountability. It starts when you stop making excuses, stop blaming circumstances, and stop waiting for motivation. The truth is, discipline is rarely exciting. It's often uncomfortable, but it builds trust with yourself. And that trust becomes the core of your confidence. When you keep the promises you make to yourself, you develop a sense of integrity that no external validation can replace. The world doesn't need more people who talk about change. It needs people who live it, who embody it, and that begins within. If you can't follow your own rules, you will struggle to guide anyone else. If you can't manage your own emotions, you'll react instead of respond. If you can't stick to your own standards, your words will lose their weight. That's why discipline is not just about structure. It's about freedom. The more disciplined you are, the more control you have over your own life. You're no longer at the mercy of distractions, temptations, or mood swings. You operate from intention, not impulse. Discipline shows up in the small things: waking up on time, sticking to your routine, choosing focus over entertainment, progress over perfection. These small acts, repeated daily, create momentum. And that momentum compounds. Over time, it becomes unstoppable. The people who seem most in control of their lives, who lead with strength and clarity, didn't wake up that way. They built that through years of silent self-mastery, through thousands of disciplined choices no one ever saw. One of the most important aspects of self-discipline is emotional regulation. If you cannot master your own reactions, the world will constantly control you. You'll be thrown off by criticism, angered by obstacles, and discouraged by setbacks. But if you've done the inner work, if you've trained yourself to pause, to reflect, to respond instead of react, you hold your power even in chaos. That emotional stability is what creates reliable leaders. And before anyone will trust your leadership, they need to see that you can handle yourself under pressure. Another key dimension is consistency. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about showing up even on the days when you feel tired, uninspired, or doubtful. Those are the moments that define you. Anyone can act motivated when everything is going well. But disciplined individuals keep moving forward regardless of circumstances. They rely on their habits, not their feelings. That's why they win in the long run, because they don't stop when it's hard. They continue because they've trained themselves to. And let's not forget, discipline is contagious. When others see someone who leads themselves with integrity, it creates trust and respect. You don't have to tell people to take you seriously. Your behavior does that for you. Whether in business, relationships, or personal goals, people are drawn to those who are stable, committed, and trustworthy. That begins with being that person for yourself. So if you want to lead, start within. Wake up earlier. Set boundaries. Stick to your standards, train your focus, speak less and do more. Stop waiting to feel ready or inspired. Start showing yourself that you're serious. And with every act of self-discipline, you get closer to the version of yourself that can handle everything you're asking for. Because you can't lead others until you've led yourself, and you can't lead yourself without discipline. Master that, and the rest begins to align. Not overnight, but surely and steadily. With every decision you make to become stronger, sharper, and more in control than you were yesterday. In a world that constantly pressures us to prove ourselves, there is deep power in choosing silence over explanation. We live in a time where everyone seems to be talking, explaining their choices, defending their paths, justifying their dreams. But not everything needs to be explained. Not every decision requires validation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stay silent and keep moving. That silence is not weakness, it is maturity. It is clarity. It is strength under control. When you stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand you or who don't want to, you free yourself from their judgment. You reclaim your peace. The truth is, most people won't see your vision. It wasn't given to them. It was given to you. They haven't walked your path. They don't carry your burdens, and they don't share your calling. So why exhaust yourself trying to get them to understand something that was never theirs to understand in the first place? Your journey is deeply personal. It's built on your values, your struggles, your purpose. You don't owe the world an explanation for why you're taking a different path, why you're moving in silence, or why you've chosen to focus on yourself. When you explain, you invite opinions. And those opinions, often unsolicited, misinformed, or routed in someone else's fears, can distort your clarity. They can make you question your direction, doubt your decisions, or worse, hold yourself back. There's also a subtle trap in over-explaining. It feeds the need for approval. The more you explain, the more you unconsciously seek acceptance. You begin to place your confidence in other people's understanding instead of your own truth. That's a dangerous exchange, because people's understanding is often limited by their own experiences, insecurities, or perspectives. If you live your life trying to be understood by everyone, you'll end up compromising who you are just to fit their expectations. Silence, on the other hand, builds strength. It teaches you to sit with your own thoughts, to trust your own decisions, and to walk with quiet confidence. You stop performing. You stop seeking applause. You start living in alignment with what matters to you, not what makes sense to others. And in that alignment, you find peace. Peace that isn't shaken by criticism. Peace that doesn't need to be explained or defended. Letting go of the need to explain yourself also sharpens your focus. You stop wasting energy crafting responses or managing perceptions. You use that energy instead to do the real work, to evolve, to grow, to execute your vision. You move with purpose, not for attention, not for approval, but for truth. And that kind of movement builds momentum, quiet momentum, the kind that doesn't need a crowd to validate it. It's important to remember that not everyone deserves access to your reasoning. Silence is not only a form of strength, it's also a boundary. You don't have to invite every opinion into your space. You don't have to share your vision with people who only want to tear it apart. Your silence can be your filter. It can protect you from unnecessary conversations, debates, and distractions. It can keep you rooted in your why while the world gets lost in the noise. Of course, there will be times when communication is important, when sharing your perspective helps build connection or understanding with the right people, but that's the key. Choose those people. Be intentional. Your energy is precious. Spend it wisely, and know the difference between explaining to connect and explaining to please. One builds bridges. The other builds cages. There's also something deeply inspiring about a person who doesn't feel the need to explain. They walk with quiet conviction. They trust their own voice more than the crowd's echo. They lead with actions, not just words. That presence is rare and unforgettable because it's real. It's not based on performance or approval. It's based on alignment and integrity. So let them wonder, let them assume, let them talk. Your job is not to be understood by everyone. It's to be true to yourself. The right people will see you, support you, and understand without needing a full explanation. And the rest, they were never your audience to begin with. In the end, silence is not the absence of voice. It's the presence of purpose. It's the decision to speak only when necessary and act always with intention. Let your results, your growth, and your peace do the talking, because the most powerful statements are often made without a single word.